meetings. My name is Brian Moore. I'm the first selectman in the town of Lowell, as well as the town GOP chair. We're gathered here with some of the other Central Lake Republicans. If you could just put your hands up. We've got Kathy, Dave, and Dave Moisten over here, and you all met Kathy downstairs, Dave's wife. I'm really excited about this event. Thank you for showing up today. This is really a well-attended event, so I'm very happy that you're all here today. We've got a great panel. First off, we've got Governor Paul LePage. I want to thank you for making your trip up here. I know you're going all over the state, and you're a busy guy. He's going to speak for about, well, he's got 30 minutes. I don't know if he'll use all 30 minutes. We also, unfortunately, Irene Gifford, representative for the town of Lincoln, called me a little while ago. She's sick, so she can't make it here today. She did leave some pamphlets up at the table. Please grab that. You'll learn a little bit about her if you don't already know her. We also have Representative McIntyre from District 18. He's from my hometown of Lowell, and when he comes up to introduce himself, he does a great job rattling off 18 different towns. That's his thing. So we also have Leo Kenny. If you're familiar with the last race, Leo's come out again, and I would really like to see this part of the state give him his full endorsement and come out and show up at the polls and give him the vote that he needs. Also, on this side, I was up at the Katahdin Republican meeting last night. Got a chance to meet two candidates that we offered a spot to introduce themselves. So we have Jim Mishu from Medway, and we have Nancy Terrio from Millinocket, and they both thrown their hat in for District 29 up in that area. So please give a round of applause to all of our candidates. We do have a few members of the press in the back. We are going to hold questions until the panel discussion at the very end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Governor LePage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been here to this school on several occasions, and I'll tell you, it's just they do a great job. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story. Back in 2010, there was a young man that went to the school. He was a welder. He went on to become. He went to the state championship in the spring, and he was the number one 18-year-old welder in the state of Maine. He went to the nationals and became the number one national 18-year-old welder in the United States. Went to the Worlds in Finland and came 5th in the United States. And he applied to a community college, and they couldn't get in because they didn't accept his grades from this school. So I called the president of one of the best schools in the state of Maine, in Maine Maritime Academy, spoke to the president, and his response says, well, if he's that good, we're going to give him a try, because if my boat is stuck in the middle of the Atlantic, I don't care if his verbal's aren't up to par. And so he got into the Maritime Academy. Then I lost track of him after that because I was busy. I got elected and I was busy in Augusta. I'd like to say this, first of all. There's a card up there, and it's got a QR code. I'd like you all, if you're interested in getting the card, and you can get on our Facebook, and we will keep you informed on what we're doing for the next year. You can follow us, and I would really urge you and ask you to join, because it's very, very important. And I will tell you, the next election, if you show up to vote, if the Republicans show up to vote, we win. If you stay home, we lose. It's that simple. We are up in the polls. We're a strong candidate. I'm getting a lot of support from the White House and from Washington. It's a matter of people voting. We have more Republicans than Democrats in this district, and we should win this district. It should be run and headed up by a Republican. I'm running for Congress for a few good reasons. One of them this morning, I was talking to the White House. I've been talking to the White House ever since I became a candidate, which is more than the incumbent representative right now can do. And I'm talking to the White House about the tariffs in northern Maine. I'm talking about fishing, and I'm not the candidate, but I'm acting like a candidate because I care about the people in the 2nd District. I'm coming out of retirement not because I need a job. I'm coming out of retirement because my wife kicked me out and said, go get a job. I am a big supporter of President Trump. Now, I don't agree with him 100%, but I do agree with his general policies and his general agenda. To fix the wasting government, to end illegal immigration, lower inflation is not. Lower inflation, I had that as a point of discussion, but it's got to go beyond lowering inflation. We've got to find affordability in this country. We have to make things affordable, which means we don't want to eliminate inflation. We want to reduce prices. And that's a much different challenge than just lowering inflation. And I want to stop the woke insanity in this country. And we got to improve Maine's economy. I'm very, very saddened that the current governor spends $45 million in upgrading the State Museum, $10 million or so to fix the Blaine House to her liking, but she won't allow Maine people to have no tax on overtime and no tax on tips. You want affordability? That's what we need to do. We need to lower taxes. We have to put it in your pockets. What she doesn't understand is when we lowered the taxes back in my first administration, 96 cents of every dollar when you reduce taxes goes right back in the economy immediately. So your sales tax takes off. And you're out there. So she doesn't get that. And I would ask you in the next run for governor, please find a businessman, not a lawyer. We've had enough lawyers as governors. We need another businessman who can fix the problems and the destruction that this governor has placed on our economy. My top issues is stop the woke insanity. Boys do not belong in girls' sports in middle school and high school. I'm not a great athlete, but I will tell you, when I was a teenager, there are very few gals that I couldn't take down, and that's just biological. That, it's just common sense. We just need to have boys play in boys' sports, girls play in girls' sports, and that's the bottom line. Fight waste and fraud. I will tell you, there is waste and fraud in city government, in state government, in county government, and in the federal government. And I can tell the federal representatives where to look for fraud in state government, because we found some. We found a lot. In fact, in 2015, out of $330 million EBT budget, we found 60 million of that in fraud. And the 5 cities, major cities in the United States where that money was spent, Las Vegas, Disney World in Florida, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Philadelphia. Now, I can understand the first 2. I just don't understand the last 3. So we need to work on that. Poverty, welfare. There is no candidate in the state of Maine, or probably even in the United States, that doesn't understand welfare like I do. I grew up dirt poor. I was on the streets at 11. I know what real poverty is. And I know how I got out of poverty. It wasn't by taking from the state. It's by working. I worked my tail off in many, many jobs. In fact, in 1969, that summer, I earned $5,000 working 3 jobs and hardly sleeping for a whole summer. I went back to college to rest up. It was really easier to go to college than the hard work I did that summer. We must secure our borders. And I will tell you, Donald Trump, if he's done anything, is he secured the borders, and all the people that come in our open borders under Biden need to be shipped home. It's that simple. Small businesses. I will tell you right now, this state is built and has a reputation of being supported by small business. And there's no other time in history more important to remember than today. We used to have tons of paper mills and large companies. Most of them are gone because of our tax structure, because of our environmental hate of companies. I mean, there's a big brand new plant in Washburn, Maine that puts people to work. It's a high-tech, good company. And they got fined by the DEP for making too much noise. It's a factory. They bring in loads of potatoes every day to process, but some neighbor was angry and said he was making too much noise, so that plant has been sold. Not to an American company, to a Canadian company. Now, I don't begrudge that, but I wanted them to succeed to give the Canadian company competition. And that's not going to happen now. And the most important thing, and my opponent before he dropped out, said I was a danger to health care and Medicare. Let me be very clear. I am a strong supporter of Medicare, a strong supporter of Social Security, because I'm on it. I collect both. Why the hell would I take my insurance away? Why the hell would I hurt Social Security? And I don't, I never took any Social Security till I was 70 years old. Because I didn't need it. But at 70 years old, you take it or lose it. And I worked hard my whole life and I wasn't going to lose it. I remember Mickey Martin, when he turned 65, he says, no more salary, I'm going on Social Security. And the most that man made, now this is a major company, a major iconic company in the state of Maine. The most he ever took for a salary is $25,000. And he built a nice company, and he passes the savings on to the people of the state of Maine, which is what I want to do in Congress, is help the people of Maine prosper. And we can do that because some of the laws that I put in that were good laws in the state of Maine, the current governor, within 8 months they were all gone and you went back to the old way of life. Well, guess what? If you codify it at the federal level, they can't do that. They have to honor the laws of the country. And there's already one law that has been put out there that came from the state of Maine. And that's in the working man's bill that the president passed. Simply says that if you're able-bodied individual and you're collecting welfare, you have to attempt to go to work, volunteer your time, or get educated. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the other thing that I'm a big, strong advocate for is the First Amendment. And if you followed me as governor, you know that I pushed it to the limit. I mean, I was in the first appellate court in Boston for firing somebody that was lying to the Maine people. I'm also a major, major supporter of the Second Amendment. In fact, when the press wanted to see everybody's card to carry, concealed carry permits, I showed them, the only one I showed them was mine. And I also reminded them that was the only one they're going to ever see. And now we've got constitutional carry, which I signed when I was governor. If the first two, First Amendment, Second Amendment, failed me, I will go to the fifth. Thank you very much.
Governor LePage, I know you have a meeting early in Augusta. Do you have time for a question?
Sure.
You spent years advocating for welfare reform in the state of Maine, and you got a lot of programs back on track. Governor Mills got elected and then did many of the reforms that you put into place, specifically about work requirements. Is welfare going to be a focus of your time in Congress, and what can we do to make sure we reform welfare and get people back to work and protect the system for Maine's most vulnerable?
Well, that's a great question because the answer is absolutely yes. That is one of the, there are three major areas that I'm going to be working on. One is welfare reform. The other one is going to be student loan reform. And third is healthcare, because all three are broken. In the welfare side of things, I tried to do it in Maine, but we did not have enough in the House and the Senate to pass it, is a tiered system for welfare recipients. In other words, you have to work if you're able, but if you work, and when I was at Martin, so many times people would come in and they'd say, I want to give them a raise, and they couldn't take it. Because if they earn another dollar, they lose all their benefits. But they would ask me, give me more paid vacation, which is appropriate because they can't take the money. I want to have a tiered system, 5 tiers. And so every time that you hit a milestone, you don't lose all your benefits. You lose 20%, and you move on. The last one to be touched would be healthcare. And so people will have the ability to work themselves out of poverty rather than stay in economic shackles because of the system we have that keeps you poor. If you recall, when Obama was president, they were telling people, we can't give you any more while you're working, but if you quit, we can give you more benefits. That's not the way to go. The way to go is work hard, and we'll allow you to keep 80% of everything you earn up and beyond the limits on the tiered system. And so that way there, and the last tier would be middle income. In other words, the last tier would be at middle income that you no longer need any assistance from the state. Anyone else? Because I do have to leave early. Yes, sir.
Governor LePage, I'd like to know what the state's plan is with the property taxes. Most of the state, everybody seems to be in here is close to that age of senior citizens, and it seems like Penobscot County's in like a 30% deficit to the state for property taxes, and it seems to be driving people out of their homes and into assisted living and everything else. What's the end goal for the state here for?
I can tell you what my end goal was. I can't tell you what this current governor is. The problem in education, the problem in property taxes is education. 100% education. Less and less students and more money. That's a recipe for disaster. The state of Maine, if it truly wants to control its property taxes, need to start thinking about consolidating schools. Now, I'm not suggesting that you put kids on a bus for an hour each way. I am suggesting that you start looking at where you can close some schools, and I'll give you one big example. Waterville, Winslow. I was the mayor of Waterville. During the time I was mayor in 2003, Harold Alfond came in and said he would build us a new high school if we consolidated. Now the high schools are 1 mile apart. In Oakland, Fairfield, Waterville, and Winslow, there are 4 high schools. Waterville and Winslow were built for 1,200 students. There's not 1,200 students in the 4 towns. So 1 high school should be enough. 1 superintendent should be enough. And what I'm saying is, until we start doing that, property taxes go out of sight. And it's a very simple thing. When I was mayor, home rule was real important. When I became governor, I realized that home rule was killing us. And education is the area which is killing us. Now, we had a vote in Waterville, Winslow. Waterville, 99.9%. I had one person come in and tell me it was not a good idea to consolidate between the 2 towns. Winslow, on the other hand, had a referendum on it, and they voted it down. They voted it down because the coaches they didn't want to have the Purple Raiders. Because the mascots would be changed. And that was a big deal. But if you look now, 15 years later, the hockey teams are consolidated. The football teams are consolidated because they can't get enough players. So folks, the answer to the high taxes, the high property taxes, is consolidating your education system. You do that, and there are a lot of good things happen. In Waterville, Winslow, Waterville and Winslow each had a French teacher. In Waterville, they had 5 students. The teacher had 5 students. In Winslow, they had 4 students. Well, if you had one teacher with 9 students, you'd have a better dialogue in the classroom, better opportunity to grow. And so instead of your scores keep going down like they have been, they'd be going up. In the last 7 years, the state of Maine, when I took over as governor, the school system was in the mid-20s. I left, it was 19th. Now it's 47th. Folks, it's all about taxes, quality education, and consolidation. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I have a comment first. There's no doubt in my mind that you're headed to Washington.
If you vote.
And I will, sure. But you could do me a favor when you get there. When you talk with the president, you could ask him about what happened to Doge. Because the cuts and all that just seemed to have went away. And they didn't even begin to hit the fraud and the waste. But it just seemed to die down. And I'd like to hear more about it. I'd like to see it back in the spotlight.
Well, you and I are on the same page there, because I'll tell you one thing that really concerns me that's also on my agenda is the national debt. National debt is way too high. The president initially came in and was, and he had Elon Musk, and he was taking, not a chainsaw, he was taking a cane. And the Congress rebelled. And even the Republicans in Congress were falling down. There's a handful of the real conservatives that were all with him. But believe me, we need to cut Washington. Education is one, environmental protection is another. This idea that we're going to have electric cars in Maine by 2035 is insanity. It's an absolute insanity because we can't charge them. Solar panels in the winter and wind are not going to create enough energy to take care of the batteries that we need to charge. Never mind the growth in the major systems that we need with the advent of A1. So we absolutely need to go back to common sense. Now, if you want to have electric cars in California, in Texas, maybe even in Florida, which they're not very happy about, they're probably a better opportunity there than Maine winters, New Hampshire winters, Vermont winters, Montana, North Dakota. These electric cars, the technology is not there to keep them charged. And so that's one area. So there's so many areas in which I want to tackle. And the one thing I bring to Washington that is not there in the Congress is I was a mayor and a governor. And so while I'll be a freshman, I will have more knowledge about public policy than a lot of the young people going to Washington. In fact, I just spoke to one this afternoon, and he told me, he said, I'm a freshman. I said, I'll get you to become a sophomore by the time I get there. We'll educate you on what's happening in the States. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Governor. Also, if you notice on the table over there, we are taking collections for Mr. LePage, and there's a little jar over there. If you'd like to contribute to that on your way out. Also, Central Lake Republicans will also get a little jar over there. So thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Representative McIntyre for District 18. I'd invite him to come up and
Well, good evening, everybody. Hello. Hello. That is a hard act to follow, but I will do my best. I am Matthew McIntyre, and I am proud and humbled to serve the people of House District 18. And as Mr. Mora alluded, I like to break the ice with giving a picture of the expanse of House District 18. I live in Lowell, just down the road. Up here in Maine, just down the road is 30 miles or so. House District 18 comprises Lowell, Burlington, Greenbush, Passadumkeag, and Clifton within Penobscot County. I then transitioned down to Hancock County and picked up Amherst, Aurora, Osborne, Great Pond, Dedham, Eastbrook, Mariahville, and Otis. And I finish down in Washington County with Beddington, DuBois, and Cherryfield. It's just shy of 2,200 square miles. And a little fun fact, since we started this race, and I say we, you're going to hear me say we a lot, and I'm going to be looking at my First Lady all night long, 70,000 miles is what I've put on since April to today. And I will continue to do that because I believe there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm willing to do that work. So there's the quick intro to House District 18, and I am new to this. Whether you believe it or not, I am standing here shaking in my boots because this is that important to me. Not because I'm nervous, it's because I want to succeed for all of you. And that gets me going, so bear with me. I was recently out in Chicago meeting with Google executives on the big topic of artificial intelligence. And every speaker that came to the podium was asked to share 3 things about themselves, just so the crowd knew a little bit more about those people. So I'm going to give you 3 things about myself, just so you know where I'm coming from. I have been married for just shy of 33 years to my very beautiful First Lady, Carrie. And a fun fact, our first date was skydiving. So I knew I had found the one. She had the courage to go through life with this guy. Second thing, this is somewhat topical. Yes, I have 2 tattoos, which I will not show you this evening. But I will tell you, one is a tiger's head and one is a teddy bear with a sailor's hat on it. So you can interpret that as you will. And finally, just a little nugget, I have traveled 6 out of the 7 continents and remain hopeful that someday I will get to Antarctica. Got to save up to do that. So, quick introduction. Why did I run in 2024? Little background. As Mr. LePage shared, I too have known poverty. I grew up in a family of 9 kids with a single income source, that being father. Mother stayed at home and raised us. There were things that we needed. And so at the age of 7, I went out and got my very first paying job. It was just a farmhand, shoveling crap, baling hay, driving tractors. I got addicted to earning my way. And I've been working ever since. Finished high school, found my way to the United States Navy, where the kid that a few years ago was shoveling horse dung learned how to run nuclear reactors. And that's what I did for the Navy. I ran nuclear reactors on board the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson. After that, I transitioned to the United States Secret Service. Served there for 21 years, protecting 4 sets of presidents and vice presidents and other national and international dignitaries. That's a sum total of 7 to 50, that's 43 years of full-time employment. In 2020, I decided, gotta retire. It's time to pass the torch. We had saved, we had scrimped, we had lived within our means. And we decided we're gonna go to Maine and live life the way it should be. In very short order, learning about my new neighbors, I picked up on something. Too many of my new neighbors were scared for their futures. And frankly, without using my Navy language, that ticked me off. I will be damned if my neighbors are going to be fearful for their future. And so with the love and support of my wife, we said, I got to go back to work. And along the way, I'm going to throw a tip of the hat here, I found a coach to help me navigate these new and tumultuous waters that are Augusta. And so I'm going to throw out a shameless plug to one of my favorite people in the world, Representative Kathy Javner. She was my first representative up here, and we met and had coffee and learned about each other and established a good relationship, and she became quickly somebody that I looked up to. And then it was a few years later that there was a massive shuffle in the districts up here, and she was no longer my rep, but I got a good man by the name of Vinnie Carmichael. All that said, I ventured in. But that's why I ran, is because it makes me angry when people are scared. I am a protector by nature, and though I do not have Harry Potter's magic wand in my back pocket, and I can't make all of these challenges go away overnight, I still got a lot of P and V down here, and a lot of heart, and a few good ideas rattling around. And seeing as your tax dollars paid the bulk of my adult career, I figure I have a duty to pay that back for as long as I possibly can. So that's why I ran. Why am I running again? And yes, I have declared I am running again to be the House Representative for District 18 in 2026. I'm running again because despite the dysfunction that I have seen with my own 2 eyes down in Augusta for the first session, I planted some seeds and they're starting to grow. I'm not going to reveal all of that tonight, but I'm quite excited. So why do I got to get back in 26? To add sunshine and water and help those seeds grow. I tend to skip the fertilizer because there's enough BS out there already. So that's why I'm running again in 2026. Why do I believe that 2026 represents a turning point for Maine? You all have lived here longer than I have, but I'm a quick study. And I'm trying to catch up on the history of Maine. And I look at long-term trend lines. And there are disturbing patterns that I am seeing that Maine is not heading in a good direction. One, we're not living up to our state motto a year ago. We're not leading where we could. Watch what the current administration does. They look at what California does, and then 6 to 9 months later try to adopt it and cram it down our throats. Let California be California. Maine needs to be Maine. And I believe that we need to live up to that motto a year ago and start leading. 2026 represents a turning point for us. If we do not show up in massive numbers to those polls and flip the script down there, it may be too far gone. So I am telling you from a freshman set of eyes, we need to turn out and get to work and establish some sense of balance down in Augusta, because right now there isn't any. Beyond that, I'm also going to share one little thing that we should all be thinking about in this room, and that's 2030. Why is 2030 so important? First, we will win. We will win, Leo. We're going to do this in 26. At least the House, possibly the Senate. We darn sure need the governorship. We need, as the governor said, a business-oriented chief executive to start exploring opportunities that we have missed. We have missed for too long. And we have to seize those opportunities. So, but 2030, folks, is the next census. And when those numbers come out, the administration in control gets to do something that not a lot of people are aware of. They get to redraw the lines, yet again. We saw what happened in 2020. I believe it was referred to as a nuclear bomb up here in terms of redistricting. They will have another opportunity. So we need to grab 26 and hold it through 2030. So please keep that in mind. We've got to be looking at this long range. Successes and failures from my first 6 months down there. I'll be brief on this. Let's see, I tilted at the windmill of reintroducing a student wage. I had no shot when I stood in front of the labor committee to present that. My first job, as I told you, $1.75 an hour. You know, now look where we're at. Minimum wage is automatically tied to CPI, and some of the numbers we're hearing, it's a great cash giveaway for no skill set. Skill sets need to be developed. And you need to start out entry level, like everybody in this room probably did, and work your way up. But I failed on that one. Learned some lessons. Might tilt at that windmill again in 2026. So that was a failure. Success. And when I get the question from the moderator, I'll go into this more. LD 300. A little seed. I told you I plant seeds. LD 300 was to direct the governor's energy office, now the Department of Energy Resources, to engage a study to reinvigorate hydroelectric in the state of Maine, and to do an initial exploration of deep drill, deep core geothermal. And I'll go into that a little bit later when I talk specifically about energy. Wind and solar are not baseload. They do not support our needs. And it is a subsidized cash cow for overly powerful lobbyists and environmental groups and just some really shady sharks that have figured it out. So not a fan of wind and solar in this environment. we need to start exploring a different energy portfolio. And so success of LD 300, believe it or not, I got it out of the committee, unanimous. Even the opponents couldn't deny the logic. So I was proud to say a fully supported bipartisan bill, which as a newbie I was told when I got down there, sit down, shut up, you're not going to get anything done. We've got the numbers, just be quiet. That's not my nature. So that was a success. Okay. What are some additional pieces of legislation that I'm considering if I'm graced with your vote in 26? Brought to me by a constituent of my hometown. Legwork has been put in, which I appreciate, and a little bit more legwork. We're going to try to see if we can get some sense of reimbursement for local fire and EMS for the services they render on I-95. Presently, if the local department rolls out there, they're providing service but getting nothing in return. So that's a conversation that I would like to spearhead with the support of the person that brought that idea to me. Election integrity, that's a big topic, right? As I was sharing earlier with the gentleman from Woodville, right? Woodville. I see that we're going to have to take an incremental approach to restoring election integrity. We tried with voter ID, that simple concept of pulling out your driver's license to vote, right? We do it to buy booze or tobacco, or I had to show my ID the other night to get into a hockey game. But we don't have to show our ID to vote. That's one thing. Another piece of legislation that I'm considering, and I have to do some more research. How many places should you as an individual be allowed to vote? The answer is one. Well, I like to do research, and I have discovered, at least within House District 18, there is a scenario where folks in one of my unorganized territories are authorized to vote in 3 different locations. Now, I tend to believe in the goodness of people. I want to believe that they're not going to game the system, but that's a vulnerability. And when I brought that to the Secretary of State in a personal conversation, she acknowledged it. Yeah, that's a deficiency. And if I'm elected to governor, maybe I'll work with you on that. But time out. If somebody's pointed out a deficiency and you have the ability to close it, then do your job. But that's politics. But that's something that I want to work on. And then I'm kicking around an idea. It's been tried a few times, limiting the governor's emergency powers. I think this state saw that that was abused. Do I think that the governor should have no emergency powers? No, I don't. I think the chief executive needs to have a measure of latitude. However, after 45 days, it's not an emergency anymore. Now it's just a management situation. You better have a really compelling reason to prolong the pain that was inflicted on this state under the guise of an emergency. So what shape that'll take, I don't know. 2/3 of both bodies having to approve an extension one time. Will of the people, clearly. But that's one thing that I'm considering working on. A lot of these presentations, they take a lot of work. And there's only 25 hours in the day. So really, I think those are my major talking points. And I'll be glad to field any questions when we get to that point. But the governor, he's right. We got to turn up and vote. And so before I step away, I do want to thank everybody from the Central Lakes region, one, for putting this on, for your continued efforts in getting people activated, motivated, get people to the polls. 2026 might be our last shot. So thanks for hearing me, and good luck to all the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McIntyre. Now we're going to have Leo Kennedy. Kenny, I'm sorry.
Not that
You're a little nervous there. Give you a little ovation. District 8 Senate, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. A couple tough acts to follow there. These are polished politicians that I have to follow, unfortunately, but I will just say that I had the fortune of running alongside of Mac in 2024, and hands down, I mean, a month or two in, he didn't even have an opponent, and the guy probably hit every door 3 times in that entire geography he just talked about. It was just such a great running partner. I'm so fortunate to be running alongside him again in the coming months. So, thank you to the Central Lakes Republicans. This group, who I've known from last time, and they've done a lot. They're doing a lot pulling together this region. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised there were only a few hands that popped up when you mentioned who they are. So I guess probably you're going to put a plug in, but they're really building momentum. They're building a machine, and we need a machine up here. We need a machine everywhere in this state, to the previous speakers. So I'm sure there's opportunity to join whether it's your local and then be part of the Lakes region. So I would encourage folks to do that. So yeah, I'm Leo Kenny. I was born and raised in Orono, People's Republic of Orono, Maine at this point, but feel really blessed actually to have been brought up there. I got Mac beaten by 1. I'm the youngest of 10. He's only got 9 kids in the family, so we ousted him there. But been a small business owner for the past 28 years. So I think, I'm not running for governor, but I think it's going to apply on every front down in Augusta. There's a severe lack down there. I guess I'll back up. I don't have this memorized, but I fortunately do have a map, just so we all know what Senate District 8. I'm gonna work on that, being able to recite it, because I have. So this district runs VZ, Orono, Old Town, Indian Island, Milford, Greenfield Township, Alton, Argyle, Greenbush, Summit Township, Grand Falls Township, LaGrange, Edinburgh, Passadunk, Howland, Enfield, Lowell, Burlington, Lincoln, Wynn, Lee, D3R1, Lakeville, Springfield, Western Plantation, Prentice Township, Carroll Plantation, and Pucacon Township. So also a huge geography to cover for, obviously state senates seats are bigger, are more people and larger than House. But so again, born in Orono, went to Maine, moved away, stayed away for about 8 or 10 years. Then my wife and I, who has been really a huge part of the campaign last time and will probably be bigger this time, but we moved back about 20 years ago. We have 3 children, raised them in Orono, feel really fortunate to have done that. We have 2 daughters who are beyond college now and doing real life things, and we have our youngest, who is our son, still in his 2nd year in college. All throughout the past 20 years since moving back, we've kind of thrown ourselves into the community and on many fronts. There's a library effort down there that we built a freestanding libraries. My wife Sarah chaired pieces of that. I've drifted into school committee several times, and just finished up my term for the Orono Town Council. So we definitely believe in community service, and this is somewhat of a natural next step for me to take it to the next level and go to the state level. Hopefully, some people, or a good chunk of people in here, do recognize my name. Again, I ran in 2024. Really had a great race. I was a complete newbie. Was somewhat coerced into running, to be fully candid. Do not desire to be a lifelong politician by any stretch, but felt like
the time was right, and there was obviously we had a need then, just as we pretty much the same needs today. So we ran a really tight race, I think, lost by 132 votes out of 20,300 in this district. And this is one of my whys is, that I'm running is because I absolutely have a path to this seat, and we need it. We need every seat we can get in this state. So if we don't flip the seats, Max said, I think, obviously we want the trifecta, but we have to get at least a couple of these bodies in Augusta, or there's just no stopping what's been going on so far. But to put that into perspective, lost by 132 votes, 1,100 people in the district did not vote in the Senate race, so it didn't come down ticket. All sorts of theories about that. I think the most obvious one would probably be Trump got the vote out. A lot of people came out that hadn't voted before and either weren't engaged, didn't care, and didn't go down ticket. In Lincoln alone, there were 280 blanks left. Again, I lost by 132. There were 280 people that did not vote. That goes right back to getting out the vote. And quite honestly, that's on me for sure. I can appreciate, and I think Republicans are more likely to do this than Democrats. People just like, I don't know who that is. I'm not going to. Why would I vote? Makes sense, but we can't have that attitude. We really, Democrats don't have it. I think they blindly go where they're led. So, but I need to do better. I need to meet more people, and this is doing things like this. Hopefully, it's so early. We started in April. We were just looking. My first thing doing anything with regards to campaigning was we came up here for the eclipse, and I was up here before my wife was up here. And I had glasses, and I had my stickers on, and I was walking around, hey, want some glasses? I wasn't really talking to people, and she came up and gave me a pretty swift boot in the ass, and said, what are you doing? Are you talking to me? So that was helpful, and she really hasn't stopped doing that. But another big piece to why I believe I have a path. I'm not getting around the university. That's a albatross on my back. And we had 2,000 new registered voters in Orono. Probably 1,800 were college students, and they were clearly motivated to vote in the presidential election. In Orono, it was 70-30 Kamala. Unlike the rest of the district, obviously, but that is the university influence. And again, students aren't likely to come out to vote for their Democratic president and tip over to the other side of the ballot and fill it out for an hour. So that's a challenge. And this is a big election. Obviously, it's a big state election. We're going to have some big names on there, but it's not going to be presidential. I think the numbers always show that a lot less come out. So at 132, the challenge, again, everybody that voted, we're not going to get everybody out that voted before, obviously. So that getting out the vote is what we're going to be doing for the next year. As obnoxious as that is going to be for everybody in this room, present company included, we're going to be inundated with campaign stuff. So I'm trying to do some stuff early on. Like I said, this is a 7-month gain I have right now through April. And again, I started in April, but I was really tiptoeing in. So I'm pretty charged up for this race, and really feel like we have a great shot at it. So I just listed, I think there's 25 towns in this district, and I won all but 4, VC, Orono, Old Town, and Indian Island. So I need to slim the margins there, increase the margins here, but it's there. It's there for the taking, for the flip, and I've got to do it. So and I need your help. So again, more wise as to why I'm running. As I think most people know, this will be 8 years of Democrats having the trifecta. They've controlled the governorship, the House and the Senate. Poor Max been going down there getting his teeth kicked in for his first half, I guess. So that, and you know, we'll have questions later and stuff, and we'll get into, I guess, what the issues are. But I think the reasons are everyone else's issues. We've heard it 10 times already: taxes, energy, of course, education, and healthcare. We have grown our budget by 67%, and we are failing in almost, I mean, if anyone has a thought on something that the state's doing well at, besides spending money, I mean, I'm all ears. That'd be great to hear, but we're not. We're just, you know, failing in just a couple of stats here, which I feel like these are getting out a lot, but I'm going to reiterate some of them. Taxes. We're the 4th highest tax burden in the country. I believe it's all down to spending. There's the, you know, our like I said, the budget's gone up in 8 years, 67%, and it's, people will jump on and say, well, we've had a lot of inflation. True story, we have, obviously, but we've outpaced inflation by $3 billion at the state level. So that's nowhere near the explanation. I think I've heard a lot of different ideas about tax relief and whatnot, and most might remember, seniors especially, for a year they decided to do a rebate for seniors, and that fell apart somehow. But again, it was voted in and voted out, I think, by the Democrats, and I can't quite follow that. I've heard some real, I think, simple ideas that make more sense, which is increasing the homestead exemption. That to me, for one, I was on the council when the other one came out, and it was kind of a nightmare from an administrator to administer that on a town level. Increasing homestead exemption for seniors and for new homeowners, because that's obviously a huge topic as well. We all want our kids to be able to come back and live here, and it's kind of impossible right now. So I do find it a little bit laughable. The state has commissioned a task force about property taxes, which, to tell the hard truth is, coming off town council, that's 95% local issue. I mean, and I know Lincoln just went through a change up here. I think a change in the guard, which I think is going to serve them well, but it's hard. You have to be able to say no in town government. You know, town government, state government, all the way up through. You have to be able to say no and prioritize. And you know, they're hard. It's hard to do that. You know, sitting in a room like this, and often whenever there's something to be cut, this many people show up to rally. No, don't cut mine, whatever it might be. I've got I don't have any state record, but voting record at the state level. I've got a pretty solid level of voting, and where it's probably just as hard because it's your neighbors, it's the people that are working there, of being able to say no and make hard decisions. We've had our last 2 budgets where it's been a 6-to-1 vote, and I thought I made a pretty passionate plea for our taxpayers, but it was still a 6-to-1, and you can guess who the one vote was. You know, even though I lose those battles, I do believe that just having the voice there is important throughout the process, because it keeps people, and I'm talking local politics, I guess, here, but suffice to say, you have to be able to say no, and spending is a problem. Energy, which is what I know Max on the committee, so I'm talking a little out of school here, but some of the obvious stuff we're doing that we need to stop doing: net meter billing, these green subsidies that are going to out-of-state companies, right, straight out of our pocket. I mean, I'm sure all of you are the same. It used to be, there was no comparison to my electric bill and my heating bill. Now they're pretty much on par if you look at it over the whole year, and that's thanks to decisions that are being made in Augusta, and areas where I think, I don't think, I never think what's Ronald Reagan's famous line there, the 10 scariest words are from the government and I'm here to help. It's never, the government can't fix all these problems. Now, all of the problems we have, they can fix, and we can fix in Augusta all of the problems that they created. And I think that's a good chunk of them, to be honest. But we are definitely crushing all of our residents with these crazy high electricity costs. Education, Governor LePage talked about that. Back in the 90s, we were top 5. Now we're top 4. What do you say? We're 47th. So I don't believe that's a spending issue. Because our funding is, as he said, the funding's gone up. We voted 12 or 15 years ago to fund at 55%, and that's been finally accomplished. That's one thing, again, it's a spending thing, so I guess the Democrats were able to pull that off in the last 4 or 5 years. They're paying, the state's paying their full share of 55%, but I really think it's more about leadership, and you can look this up online. The current commissioner, education commissioner, Pender Macon, in 2023, and the quote was, we need to, academic learning is definitely going to have to take a back seat to social and emotional learning and some other things. So I think our rankings are a direct result of taking our eye off the ball. I mean, schools are now trying to get into healthcare and all sorts of things that really, it's just crazy to think. And again, I think this is absolutely a leadership issue. Governor is going to be super important, but so is the House and the Senate. And then healthcare. That's obviously that's a monster. I think there are so many issues from the state in federal level that just seem to get recycled decade after decade, and you talk to people, and probably people in the room. It's impossible to find a primary doctor. When you do find one, you can't get an appointment for 6 to 9 months. That's not a good way to do medicine. Obviously, they've never said, don't you wait 6 months and see if that gets better. Some things, but a lot of things is early detection, obviously. So, nursing home facilities, we've had dozens of those closing, and that adds to our whole healthcare. It's something that's got to be dealt with, and that it has to be dealt with at the state level. That exacerbates the hospital issue. You've got people waiting in hospital beds because they can't get into assisted living beds, taking up, it just builds on itself. So I think there's one, it's not the solution, but the one easy solution, I think, is that the state has to pay their bills. They've not paid hospitals. Governor LePage, I mean, the good news is it's been done, because when Governor LePage got in, he made that a point, and when he got out, our hospitals were solvent. So that is a self-created government problem that gets, I think, not like that, but that's something that's, I would love to be part of the solution to make sure they're getting paid. And then there's beyond that's a real big one that we can affect. Again, the real big why for me is that 8 years, and I think it's like 30 years of primarily having Democrat control. Maybe not the trifecta, but for a lot of years. So the bigger thing is that we absolutely have to change. And I'm really confident I can be part of that solution with the help of everybody here in the room. Because the definition of insanity obviously is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results, and similarly keep sending the same people to Augusta and let the Democrats run the state and think we're going to get it. I shudder to think what the next 2 or 4 years would be like if we don't rescue one of these, 3 of these really, but at least 2 of these chambers. I think, it's gonna take everyone that's here, and it's gonna take everyone here talking to everyone you know, and really getting out, for me, getting out to meet everyone and trying to ensure that people show up in the polls. That's it. It comes down to the vote at the end of the day. I think we have a really good path. They're gonna do whatever crazy things they're gonna do. All we have to do is get people to show up. So, thanks again for the opportunity to speak, and I guess we're gonna hold stuff till after, but appreciate the opportunity. Great.
Leo, I just want to say, I met you and your wife at the Burlington 4th of July pancake breakfast at the Old Tavern. We sat down, had a great talk, and I'm glad to see that you run. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, our next speakers, this is interesting. We have 2 candidates for District 29, and I love to see the passion that you guys have up there in wanting to run. So I'd like to start first with Nancy Terrio, and give her a round of applause.
Good evening. Thank you so much for inviting us, both Jim and I, down here. We met with our Cotton area Republicans last night. We had a good turnout for that as well. And we both, at that point, had let people know that we are interested in running for the District 29 House seat that is currently held by our wonderful Kathy Javner, who has led the way and has been strong. She's a strong advocate for all of us. She's my hero. I've learned a lot. I've campaigned with her for the last 2 runs, and I've learned a lot. And we've had a really good time together. And she's gone to Augusta, and she's worked hard for this region. And I want to continue that legacy that she's put out there for us. She's not able to run. She's terming out. She's just got, the short session to go to. But we need to keep her seat. We need Republicans, like all these speakers before us have said. We have to maintain our seats, and we need to bring on some more seats. Because I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of having my taxes keep going up. And I'm getting sick and tired of going around the countryside and seeing homes and businesses disappearing, houses dilapidating because people don't have the money to be able to fix them up, because all their money is being taken by the government for taxes. We need to help our people. Rural Maine is in trouble. And if we don't stand up, there's not going to be anything in northern Penobscot, nor Worcester County, and Washington County if we don't stand up and if we don't get to the polls and vote. We really need to make this effort. And every person in this room right now needs to go out, in the next meeting you come to, you bring 4 or 5 people with you. And if we do that consistently for the next several months, we are going to win the House, the Senate, and the governorship for this state. And we're going to put Governor LePage in Congress, where he can help President Trump to do the work that needs to be done in this area. So I beg all of you, it's not just us that are up here that are going to run. It's up to all of us. We need to do our part. Now, I sat back and I thought long and hard about whether or not I should run. And I've gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired. And sick and tired of allowing the left just to bash us. and to say things that are not true. I don't want to hurt the most vulnerable people among us. I think that all the programs we have in place need to help to support those people. What I don't like is people who don't need to be on those programs that are accepting money they shouldn't be accepting, and they need to get out and get a job. Unfortunately, what ended up happening is we had a pandemic that happened in 2020. And then from 2020 to 2022, we had businesses in our local area that were literally shut down. We had restaurants, we had schools, we had hospitals, we had small businesses that couldn't open, that couldn't do their work. A lot of them went out of business. And we had a lot of people that made a decision to retire early. And they figured out that they could get more money if they didn't work. And we had more subsidies going out to these people and more programs. How do we get these people back to work? There are able-bodied people that need to be back to work, that need not only for their family, but also for the mental health. A lot of these people need to know that they can do something and that they can succeed. So I am a strong supporter of everything that Governor LePage said, because I think that he's right on track for how do we help these people who have bought into, I don't want to lose my benefits, I don't want to lose my Medicaid, I can only work so many hours. So what do? They live in poverty. We shouldn't be having that in this state. Now, a little bit, just to back up a little bit, I grew up in Millinocket. I'm the daughter of a paper maker. As you all know, there are no more paper mills in the Millinocket, East Millinocket area. But my dad was machine tender on Machine 1. And he worked hard. He worked there for 35 years. My mother stayed home. My mother had a lot of illnesses. So really, everyone thought that we were doing okay, but we were just living above poverty. My dad worked 2 jobs. He'd work in the mill, and then he'd come home in the morning, and he'd get his pulp truck, and he'd head to the woods, and he loaded his pulp truck. And then he'd come home, he'd sleep a couple hours, and he'd go back to work. And I saw that year after year after year. I didn't want to work in the mill. So I went on I graduated from high school, and I went to nursing school. And that was back in the day when nurses trained in hospitals. We trained on the floor, and we learned our craft, and we learned how to take care of people. We learned how to take care of people and their families in the worst times of their lives. And nursing was a good profession for me for 45 years. And I had a lot of great opportunities. And I worked in the hospital, I worked in home health, I was administrator for 3 different home health agencies, and I have worked on, I'm a very, very strong fiscal conservative, and even though I worked for nonprofits at some time, balancing that budget meant the world to me, and it needed to happen. All of you balance your budget in your homes. I balance my budget in my home, and I think that it's terrible that our government, whether it's the federal government, the state government, or the local government, if they don't balance their budgets. We all need to live within our means. So I have that experience behind me, but even more so, I have experience of dealing with families in their homes. Like I said before, I've dealt with families at their worst times, and I've also dealt with people in their best times. And I want to see this state succeed, and I want us to live our best lives and have our best times. And I do not believe that there are only bad times ahead of us. I believe our best days are ahead of us if we do the work and we get our budget under control, and we bring back businesses to this state, Maine will flourish again. But we all need your help. So as far as the government, I think the state of Maine's government is too large. And I think we need to address reducing the size of government and regulation. And small businesses are being regulated to death. And we need to cut back on some of that regulation and help these businesses and bring new business in. And I think with the energy prices, it makes it tough for businesses to come in here. It costs a lot of money. And we've lost a lot of businesses that have left the state because of some of those reasons. The most important thing to me is strengthening Maine families. Maine families is the core of this entire state. My father was one of 12 children. They were raised on a farm up in Aroostook County. And he told me a story one time. He said, you know, we didn't know we were poor. We had no idea we were poor. We always had plenty of food on the table. Mom always made our clothes. We always worked together in the fields. And we all worked hard from the time we were 5 years old in the potato fields. They learned how to work when they were young. That is something we need to instill in our young people. That our young people need to learn how to work when they're young and continue to work. It's our job, and I see so many families that struggle now. You have moms and dads that are both having to work. We have a lot of single families, parents that have to work. And I know people in my area that since the pandemic have not been able to get a job with benefits. And a lot of the employers don't hire people full-time with benefits anymore. And so I know people that are working 3 jobs in order to get enough hours, to get enough money, to be able to just have the bare necessities. We need to fix that. We need to take care of our Maine families. The schools should not be raising our kids. We should be raising our kids with our values and our beliefs and make the family strong again. Protect our Maine values of hard work, self-sufficiency, and community. Communities taking care of communities. Advocate for policies that support small business and eliminate unfunded mandates. It's really great when the government tells you you have to do this and do that, but no way of funding it. And some of the things they ask us to do don't make any sense. People need the opportunity to be able to the freedom to build and live the life the way that they see fit. That's our Republican way. And so with your support, I hope to follow in the footsteps of this gracious lady over here. And I hope to be able to continue with the work that she has poured her heart and soul into and has made a path for us. Thank you very much.
I'll just say, I got to meet Nancy last night up in the Katahdin meeting, and it was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for that very passionate speech there. All right, our last speaker is from Medway. It's Jim Mishu. He's also running for District 29. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Ryan. So, probably most of you don't know me. There's a few of you that do know me, but my name is Jim Mishu. I'm from Medway, Maine, currently. been there for 45 years. They still call me a newcomer, however. I grew up in East Millinocket. I spent the first 5 years of my working career in the paper mill. I got laid off, and I soon realized that the future of job security in that mill was no longer there. I could see the writing on the wall, so I took an opportunity to join Local 131 Plumbers and Steamfitters, and I got into basically industrial heating, pipe fitting, and that type of stuff, and I've never looked back. From there, I've worked all over the globe, including Antarctica. I can give you the name of a couple of tour guides down there if you'd like. I spent 13 months down there as a government contractor, and as a government contractor, I traveled quite a bit. I also worked for another company that I did field service work all across Canada and the United States. Learned a lot of things, saw a lot of people. But one of the things that struck me was, because of my skill set, I had 16 professional licenses across 4 states at one point in time. And then as I worked for a manufacturer because it was their products, I could travel anywhere in the world and work on their product. I didn't have to get any more licenses than what I already had. But what I've learned is there's not enough of us. Just in my profession, pipe fitters and heating guys, there is right now about 1,100 jobs open. There's just not enough of us. And I'm sure a lot of you have gone through the same thing. Trying to find an electrician, a carpenter, a plumber, a painter, a sheetrocker, anything. It's hard to find anybody that is still doing it. It's even harder to find anybody that's doing it well. So one of the things that I firmly support is trade schools, like what we have here. And I think that's the key to success for a lot of our students today, and that's the key to keeping our children here. There's more money available to somebody straight out of a tech college than somebody coming out of a university with a bachelor's degree. I know, I have a bachelor's degree. And all that did was open up doors in the management for me. It never really helped me go anywhere other than this industry. And again, through that career, I've actually spent 7 years working at schools, 5 years at a tech college, Northeast Technical Institute, and University of Maine I spent time at, and then Howland School District. After a couple of injuries and 3 operations, I decided it was time for me to retire. So I have time on my hands. I am ready, willing, and able to go to work and commit to helping out the people of our area. In that regard, throughout my life, I've been involved in private groups, organizations such as the Boy Scouts, the Masons, NRA. I was a shooting sport instructor for 2 summer camps over the years, and a big supporter of the NRA, Second Amendment rights, and pretty much everything, in fact everything that Governor LePage said, I agree with. We have a lot in common. He mentioned mills. Some of you may know that the Woodland Mill just went down last week, so there's the last paper mill in the area. And after all the money they just plowed into that, I was kind of surprised when I heard that. As I mentioned, I do have a bachelor's degree. I've got a number of years in creating budgets as part of the management team. I was involved in building budgets, acquiring new help, good help. Sometimes we hired them and they weren't so good, we let them go. But I've got a number of years in building budgets there. I've also been a selectman for 6 years. 3 of that I was the chairperson, so we obviously had to build budgets for the town. And I was heavily involved in that. There was 5 people on the board plus the administrator, or administrative assistant, not an administrator. But there have been some ups and some downs, and I've had people ask me, well, why do you want to do that? It's a thankless job. Well, it's not for you particularly. It's for the community. One of my philosophies is always to give back to the community that supported me all my life, and I've done that through the organization I belong to, several of them over the years. And through that process of all these organizations I belong to, and private clubs and fraternal clubs, I learned a couple of things. One is I'm not as good as I can be. My goal is to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and a better person tomorrow than I am today. And in that respect. You know, I treat everybody fairly. I learned ethics from my parents. My dad worked in the mill, and when I was 7 years old, I carried his toolbox around as he did carpentry at night. So I learned those work ethics. Throughout my career and in the last 40 years, I worked 7 days a week. I had been a small business owner for 30 years while working a full-time job elsewhere. And I've since passed that on to my grandson. I took over my heating business and plumbing and heating. So I no longer do any of that. I've retired. One of the things that I totally agree with is the solar electric cars and trying to cover the state with solar panels and windmills. Some of you may know Jim Lebrecht. He used to be an advisor to Governor LePage. He was a strong supporter of our school at NTI, and he made appearances there regularly to talk with our students. And we sat down and did some quick calculations. In order to cover the electric needs of just residential people, residential locations, not businesses, not industrial, not your cars, not your trucks, just the electric bills for your homes, it would take 500 square miles of solar panels. You want them in your backyard? Can we start tomorrow? You know, you see them everywhere. I just came, in fact, I drove to New Hampshire and back before I came here. I stopped here before going home. And solar panels are everywhere. They just line the highway up and down the entire I-95 corridor. And I hate to see that. I mean, you see a sign at the border that says, Maine, the way life should be. And then you see wall-to-wall solar panels blanketing the roadside. That's not the way life should be. I'll just reiterate something that a couple of you already touched on. We don't have a taxation problem. We've got a spending problem. I look at the school in our town, which I was involved in the town side of the budget. The school committee, school board, did their own budget. We had zero control of that, mostly Democrats. But nonetheless, they still had total control. We had no say in it. Our little town of Medway has an annual budget of $4.2 million, and 3/4 of that goes to the school. There's 1,100 people in that town. I'm not even sure how we get $4.2 million out of that town, but yet 3/4 of it goes to the school. Now, in that time, I can remember going to school. We had 30 to 35 kids per class and one teacher. And I can tell you from personal experience, not all those children were well behaved. I was one of them, unfortunately. But they managed. We got an education. We got a good education. And times have changed. The way they treat the children has changed. And I don't disagree with some of that, but now it's gone too far. The students have taken over. And now they have to put 2, 3, or even 4 teachers, ed techs, whatever they are, per class. We went from 400 students at Skank High School down to about 100. In that same time, they went from 40 teachers to 100. So they're plowing money and people and resources at that school, and the grades are going down. You know, the grades are going the wrong way. It's not like, well, if we put more money into it, things will change. They've tried that. They've tried that for a long time now, and it's not working. Part of the problem, I think, is we've got to put control back in the parents' hands so they can rein these children in so they no longer control the family, they no longer control the school. How you do that, I don't know. In my time, I know how it worked. I got home, the old man would smack me upside the head or put me over his knee and take a belt to me. And I didn't do whatever it was he accused me of doing ever again. Or at least if I did, I knew what the punishment would be if I got caught. But yeah, work ethics and you know, I've instilled that into my grandson too. I'll put a shameless plug in for him. It's Jim Mitchell Heating and Cooling. Still has my name, but my grandson has total control over it. So call him for your needs. But anyways, I would strongly appreciate your support. And if you know, even if Kathy gets the nod, Nancy gets the nod, I will definitely support her. I've talked with Nancy previously. I appreciate her input. Sorry to see you go, but it opens up an opportunity for me, and since I've been voted out on the select board, and I've retired, so now I'm a willing participant, willing to help out the community, so I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Jim, I'm jealous. You got to go to one continent that I haven't visited, just like Mac. I've been to all the others. So maybe we do an excursion down there?
I've only been to 6 myself, but I'm happy that I've been to a continent that very few people ever get to. I spent the winter, part of the winter, at the South Pole, and fewer people go to the South Pole during the winter than climb Mount Everest every year. So it's a select group. I'm pretty proud of that.
All right, well, thank you for sharing your experience and your wanting to run. So
Thank you for
applaud you
inviting
for
me.
that. All right, we're going to pivot now to a panel discussion. I'm going to ask each candidate and incumbent one question, and then we can open up to any questions that the audience might have, okay? Sound good? All right, so Matt, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Every one of us is painfully aware of the affordability issues associated with electricity prices. What do you believe we need to do to begin a course correction?
Thank you. That's a good question. I'm sure it's on a lot of people's minds. To be very blunt and not tap dance around the first few immediate actions, we need to elect the correct Republican governor in 2026. And when I say the correct one, referring back to some of Mr. LePage's comments, a business-oriented chief executive, not another lawyer. We need somebody that's going to be at that helm to send the correct market indicators out into the free market, the folks that are developing unique, powerful systems that would be better suited here in Maine. So the first thing is pick the correct governor in 26. Second, again, equally, can I?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Second step, replace all 3 commissioners at the Public Utilities Commission and restaff with appropriate subject matter experts. The three individuals that are there now at the PUC do not have the right background to be making decisions in this industry. They just don't. And you can look at the lineage of how they got there. It's all cronyism, nepotism, good old boy stuff. They don't have the background to be running a major function like that. And then finally, I'll use the word fire the current head of the Department of Energy Resources. I won't mention names, that's not my style to sling mud like that. Frankly, the gentleman that is the interim head of the new Department of Energy Resources, again, formerly the Governor's Energy Office, now the doer, no business being there, and is leading under the direction of our chief executive, leading the state down the wrong path. So those are the first 3 things: get the right governor and start firing people, and probably a couple tiers deep, because each of these highly paid bureaucrats have underlings that are just going to keep marching forward with what they've learned. As far as what I see as a critical investment to start putting us on the right path, and I mentioned no Harry Potter magic wand, not going to happen overnight. We need to really go into a properly diversified energy portfolio that's tailored to the geographic realities of Maine and New England. Wind and solar, as I have said, are interesting technologies, but they do not have the capacity factor, the proper life cycle analysis, the return on investment, and they're being subsidized. So that's a whole topic unto itself. We need to look at bringing back nuclear, plain and simple. Yes. And that's, in the immediate, that's fission-based. And I'm not going to get too geeky, but I will say that I'm the eternal optimist on the fusion front, although 50 years ago they said it was 5 years away. there's still a lot of work to do there, but I'm cautiously optimistic that big brains will eventually pull that together. We need to reintroduce nuclear. I told you I planted a seed on LD300. The geothermal that I'm talking about is not home geothermal. It's not even small-scale building circuits of geothermal. Approximately 2,000 meters below us, there is a constant temperature of 400 to 800 degrees Celsius. That is energy. The Earth is a giant battery. Let's tap into that. And there are technologies that are out there, one of which saw LD300 go out unanimously, get signed by the governor. And now I can tell you that, unfortunately not in House District 18, but within the confines of Maine, there is a developer that is proposing a system that is beyond belief. 25 megawatts off of one generator. Now look at the average windmill. Wind turbine is the correct term. They produce 4 meg. This gentleman has come up with a system that will produce 25 meg off of one generator at a fraction of the footprint of any solar array or wind array. And when I got that call, I said, is this for real? Is Maine really looking at this? And yes, the governor signed it, so we are exploring it. My question to him was, what do you want from the government? Because immediately my spidey senses kicked up. Is this another corrupt developer that's looking for subsidy? He said, nope, I got all the money. I'm going to pay for it out of angel investors, equity, private equity investors. So I said, again, what are you asking for? So just support, positive messaging, and if there's any regulation that's in the way, can we work together to potentially deregulate that barrier to entry? So that's very exciting to me. Now, it's going to take a little while to navigate some of the hurdles. There is a little bit of a, people have heard the term, NIMBY aspect, not in my backyard. There are some folks in that area that are already putting up, whoa, this is too scary, we don't understand this. Now, the fact that the gentleman is willing to pay, I would hope would alleviate some of those fears. And then, let's see, nuclear, deep core geothermal, and natural gas. We can do it, but it's going to require clearly a pipeline expansion. And that's where I hope that we get the right leaders at the chief executive position, the governorship, the correct leaders in DC, that they can start exploring what are the solutions to bringing more natural gas up here. So that's clearly a whole of government effort. And then finally, the no-brainer is hydro. We've got free-flowing water pretty much year-round. You know, people say, "Oh, the river's ice up." Well, there's water flowing underneath, and I believe that a properly diversified energy portfolio can really change the game for Maine and all of New England. We should live up to our motto. I said it before, Dirigo. Let's do this, let's lead. And I hope that answers that question. So.
Leo, while we're holding the microphone there, yeah, just pass it to Leo. All right, here's your question. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Actually, a couple of candidates talked about this, but I'd really be curious to get your read on this. So I keep reading about hospitals closing, not being able to pay their bills from this. They're not getting the money from the state to pay their bills. So there's a whole down chain of folks not getting money in time. People not being able to get appointments with their primary doctors. Maternity wards closing across the state. What can the state do, and what would you advocate for if you were elected to help make quality health care available to Mainers and throughout Penobscot County as well?
Appreciate the question, and I obviously alluded to kind of my quick answers to that, and keep in mind, this is an armchair quarterback here. It's so interesting listening to Mac, who's right in the middle of this, who's a kind of an energy expert, and here responding to what's going on in the state, and that is super exciting. But this is what, I read the same things, have the same concerns. My take, again, first thing is, we have to pay, the state has to pay their bills. That the downward effect of all of that, as I mentioned, 28 years we've run a business. It's not that hard to realize that if my clients don't pay me, I don't have a business. 6 employees, they don't have jobs. The trickle down is obviously a real effect. And so that's kind of table stakes, I think, in an area that again, there is no silver bullet by legislation, I don't believe either. We're never have all the answers. But the other stuff that I've studied or read on as I'm going through all of this is, I think we're paying 75 cents on the dollar at Medicaid. So Medicaid rates haven't kept up. Again, when that happens, private payers, private insurers, they're picking up the slack, and it's raising everyone else's premiums or costs if, God forbid, you're a self-payer. At the same time, I think over the last 4 to 6 years, our Medicaid enrollment has grown exponentially, like I think by 4 or 5 times. And of course, this program is for Maine's most vulnerable residents, and that's, I think they're probably, I read all kinds of things, and unfortunately these days I feel like I have trouble trusting anything, but that needs to be rectified. The people collecting, or the people on these programs need to be the people it was intended for. So kind of a reset on who's eligible and how we're doing eligibility. Because obviously those 2 alone are compounding problems. We're paying less, we're putting more people on, we're taxing the system, we're taxing everybody else that's paying their own insurance. And the nursing home issue only compounds it more. That again, I think is something that the state is going to have to focus on and resolve, because we're the oldest state in the nation, and that only goes one direction, sadly, we all realize. And we haven't even touched on the lack of mental health facilities in the state. And I don't know what the situation here is in Lincoln or North, but I believe they have some of the similar problems. We're in Orono, but if you go to Bangor, you can see the impact of mental health. We don't, and that obviously impacts healthcare, and it also impacts our jails, which probably everyone's aware of. People that are having that have mental issues should not, if they're not harmful, should not be in jail. But we're storing them in jail, we're putting them in hospitals. The whole system is really, it's quite a mess. And there's so much beyond that I think government maybe not be the answer, but there's some real, I think, tangible things that we need to do at a state level and can do at a state level. So again, just short-term payer bills, shore up the Medicaid population. Longer term, and honestly, I've learned this and heard this from a lot of the governors that are running our HHS system. It's a monster, and they're, I think, very good people, I'm certain, work there, but there is no accountability. It seems like it's a statewide thing on a lot of fronts, right to the top, obviously. But that needs a restructuring, in my opinion, and I think that's a really important aspect. We need accountability and ownership of these problems that we just kind of talk about. The state talks about them. They know they're there. And they haven't done a thing, in my view. From a healthcare perspective, I feel a brighter note. I'm a big believer in MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. I mean, we are a sick care country, obviously, and the little things, and just having it acknowledged at the federal level that let's be healthy, let's do healthy things, let's eat healthy things, let's exercise, simple stuff, but and that doesn't take effect overnight. But I'm encouraged by where we're going at a federal level on that stuff, and I hope and assume with the right people in office that we'll get more of that trickle down into the state as well. So that's my armchair quarterbacking.
Thank you, Leo. If you can show the microphone. Okay, next question is for Nancy, if that's okay.
Sure.
Nancy, I talked to you last night. I understand you're in real estate as well, and you were a nurse. You've done a lot of things. How can we reduce taxes and stop wasteful spending?
I'm getting feedback from this thing.
Speaker is
Oh, that's what the
Yeah,
problem
if
is.
you want to stand up.
Okay.
if
That probably would be better because I'm getting too much feedback. In terms of spending and reducing taxes, I think we need the right people in place. We need a businessman in charge. That's our governor. And by doing that, I think we need a complete audit of where our money's going in Augusta. What programs are currently receiving all of the money, and is the money being used wisely and in the best places? I think putting some of the ownership on all the department heads that are in Augusta and holding their feet to the fire in terms of how they're spending their money, how do we balance their individual budgets. When I worked in healthcare, every year I had to prepare a budget. Every year I had to live within that budget. And I was always very proud at the end of the year that I didn't spend all that money. And that I focused on building the business and providing the care to the patients that needed the care in a real effective way. And I think that we've lost that in state government and in federal government. There's a lot of people that have been entrenched for a long time. Maybe they're not the right people to be there. Maybe we need some new blood in there, new ideas. We need to look at opportunities to eliminate or decrease spending. Are we duplicating our efforts in some of our departments? Is there a lot of waste? And I think that we may find that there is a lot of waste. But holding those department heads accountable to come up with a budget that decreases what they're spending in their departments, but still delivers what needs to be delivered to the people of Maine, and execute those new budgets. We need welfare reform, work requirements, while protecting Maine's most vulnerable people. You know, people will look at Republicans and say, you just want to cut. You want to cut everything. You want to take all our services away. Absolutely not. We just want to make sure that our money, your money, and everybody's money that they all work hard for is spent and used correctly, and that people who need it get the services. I don't think that's a foreign concept. And unfortunately, government just keeps growing, whether it's state government, county government, federal government. It's supposed to be, our government is supposed to be for the people and by the people. And people need to take this back and take this serious and stop whatever this is turning into. I did a little research because, as I said before, the pandemic, I think a lot of things changed in this state. A lot of things changed across this country. And pre-pandemic, this is just looking at one benefit program. This is looking at the SNAP program for nutritional assistance in the state of Maine. In 2019, there were 158,880 people on SNAP. In 2022, that increased to 167,206. Driven also was driven by economic hardship and also a lot of emergency allotments. Post-pandemic, 2024 to 2025, 172,200. This is in the whole state of Maine. That accounts to about 12.2% of the population. Penobscot County, we are all in Penobscot County here. And this participation in this program surpasses 20%. The average benefit per person averages $140 per person per month. And that excludes any of the emergency allotments. And around $177 in the end of 2024. In 2025, the annual cost of living adjustment for a household family of 4 qualifies for $975 to $994 a month. I think we can do better, and I think there's a lot of work ahead of us. As Brian said, I've been a nurse for 45 years. Actually, my 50th anniversary will be next year. But I also have worked a lot of different jobs over the years. And currently I'm in business with my husband in our real estate business. And we have been helping people buy and sell their properties. And we've been helping new families come into the area and helping them, grow in this area as well. We also had a hunting lodge that we ran for 17 years for bear hunters, deer hunters, moose hunters, and fishermen. And I always joke with everybody, and I said, my husband did the guiding and I did everything else. So it was my job to take care of the people, the food, make sure the food got on the table, and work full-time as a registered nurse. So I'm not afraid to work. And I'm not afraid to go out and ask for help. And so I'm asking all of you today to help us.
Jim, I just want to say and say thank you to the school for letting us use this great facility. I think this facility leads into my question to you. We're all aware of the demographics when we look around in this room. I'm seeing, other than this little gentleman right here, got a lot of gray, right? What can we do to not only retain our young people here, but to attract more young people to central and northern Maine?
Thank you, Brian. And as you said, that does segue into this question, and this is a good example of what we need more of this school. Many of you probably remember going to high school and we had shop classes. We had wood shop, we had metal shop, we had drafting shop. We had lots of opportunities. And it's those skills I learned as a school-age boy that stay with me today. That and carrying my father's toolbox when I was 7 years old. He did that till I was 9, and unfortunately we lost him that year. And so, but I've been working myself since I was 16. Had my first house by the time I was 18, so I'm not afraid of working hard to get what I want. This is the opportunity that these kids need. Not every kid is capable of going on to law school or medical school, but some have great skills. They have good hands-on skill. They can take an engine apart. Growing up, we had friends as teenagers, they were building their own cars. That's a skill that's lost. I've got a family member who didn't know how to operate an adjustable. Anybody here that doesn't know how to operate an adjustable? It's not rocket science. But those skill sets are being lost. They're not being taught by the parents because a lot of the parents are liberal and they feel as though that type of work is beneath them. More often than not, over the years I had black under my fingernails because I work with my hands. I had cuts, I still bear the scars from many poor decisions, usually resulted in bang, cut, or crushed fingers, and worse. I've had a gas fireplace blow up on me and put me in the hospital, didn't know I was going to make it through the day or not. But the kids that don't have the academic skills really need an avenue where they can go out and make a good living for themselves. And as I alluded to before, it's schools like this. And how would you fund that? Well, the state of Maine actually does have an apprenticeship program, but it's not widely advertised. It's hard to find. The VA also has an apprenticeship program for anybody who's been in the military. It's a very lucrative and generous package for VA students. The state of Maine also offers a lot of support, both in books, people. They recruit for the apprenticeship programs. They give money for the students to buy tools and books and tuition. And the money's out there, you just got to ask for it. Beyond that, I think there should be, or could be, some kind of mechanism whereby we could fund more schools like this, and not just general. What I'm talking about is a 2 to a 4-year school, similar to what they do down community college down in Bangor. But it's not a big enough program. Every year they turn people away, and some simply can't afford it. This is where we should shift the burden to the employers, and some have already accepted that challenge. Dead River has created their own Dead River University, where they train their own technicians. They can't hire them, so they make them. And one of the deals that they have is we'll train you, we'll get you your license, and any license you desire to get down the road, we'll help you get, and we'll pay for all of that, but you have to stay working for us for the next 5 years after you get that license. What's wrong with that? Asking the employers to kick in on that. It's in their better interest. The people aren't out there. The tradesmen are not out there. Like I said earlier, you can't find them. And to find good ones is even harder. I can remember when the mills went down. Everybody that could carry a hammer was now a carpenter. Everybody that could carry a paintbrush was now a painter. I'm sure the same thing happened here in Lincoln when the mill went down. People did what they had to do to make a living, but that doesn't make them a professional. I suppose in years, if they were able to learn, they did become good at what they do. Some never became good at what they do, so there's that too. But you have a tremendous resource available to us. Young people who have mechanical skills, but just know where to polish those skills. We need more schools like this, and we need schools that are going to go more in depth. When you come out of this school, or even EMCC, you're what they consider a high-end apprentice. You still, from my side of the pond, you know nothing. You know enough to be dangerous to me, so I've got to put you with somebody else that has experience that can teach you the ways of the wise. Instill ethics, which is another thing that's absent. We've got a local businessman in my area who has recently given himself to fits of foul language to his customers, telling them exactly where they can go, what to do when they get there. And I don't think he's going to make it to winter. He's killing his own business. You can't do that. That's ethics. They need to teach ethics. When I was at NTI, we used to hold roundtable discussions with employers, and that was the one thing they came back to us in unanimous agreement, that we need to teach ethics. So we put our heads together and we actually came up with a program for that. It's only a week long, but it's geared on treating people fairly. And it's not always about making the almighty dollar. You might lose money on a job, but you're better off to keep that customer than you are to hang on to the extra profit you might get. I've made mistakes throughout my career, not a lot, fortunately, otherwise I might not be in that career as long as I was. But you know, you got to instill ethics into these kids. They've got to be able to work with people, treat them fairly, watch their temper. That's another thing we find in the school systems, that kids just have no filter. You can't go out in the public sector and work with people with that kind of attitude. It just doesn't work. High school advisors, this is another area where we could do better. They're pushing 4-year degrees. For all it's worth, it's great. Get that 4-year degree. You come out, you owe $500,000 to the school. You go out and get a job making $50,000 a year. Kids in the trade schools can get out of school and easily make $80,000 to $100,000 the very first year. Many of the students I had at NTI were hired before they even got out of school. And they were driving company vehicles to school while they were finishing their school. One of them landed a pretty prestigious job as a building automation expert, who now is the #1 go-to person for technical problems with the Honeywell systems at the University of Maine. So that was kind of cool. He was my student. Then he became a contractor working for me at the university. And in just a couple of short years, he became one of their top technicians. So it works. Trade schools do work. In our school, when I was with NTI, we had a 95% placement ratio. And those that didn't get placed decided it wasn't for them. Great, it's not for everybody. Being a tradesman means long days, weekends, nights, holidays, birthdays, and dance recitals. You're going to miss them. You're going to miss some of those. But after just a couple of years, I know, for instance, one of my graduates got hired right out of school, and he went to work for a consortium that handles a lot of businesses down in the Boston area. He went from living in his car to buying his first house, getting his first new car 2 years after he left the school. He's making 6-figure salary, and it's over $250,000. That's the kind of salary that tradesmen can make if they're any good at it. So we need to push more of that. So that, in my mind, is the #1 way to keep students here, is to educate them in a trade that's useful here, that they can make a living at here, not Portland or Bangor or Boston or beyond, like I did all over the world. But I came back, and I still made a living at it. It just wasn't as good as my government contract work, but I learned that money wasn't everything. It was better to spend more time with the family after being away for nearly 13 months. That was hard. So we don't want our kids to do that. We want them to stay here. The only reason why I did it was because I was near the end of my career and I wanted something exciting before I left.